we are super excited. This is going to be a very special episode.
Yes, it is.
So we are going to talk about collaborative divorce.
Yep.
We have a special guest. I didn't even know collaborative divorce was a thing. So Lucia here is going to tell us all about it.
Right.
She's a lawyer here in Seattle. And I can't wait to learn from you because I have no idea what that means. We've all heard about this negative idea of divorce. Courthouses, they're scary and divisive and so on. There's always a winner and a loser, it seems, in the courthouse. And when you're co-parenting, I would like everyone to win so it doesn't feel like, you don't start your co-parenting off with these negative feelings and what have you. So
Right. When I first heard collaborative divorce, it sounded like an oxymoron to me.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy that you're here to dispel all the negative rumors associated with divorce. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
being here.
I'm so glad to be here. And thank you guys for doing this work around co-parenting because it's so important and it's so inspiring, and I have had the unfortunate side of the law to see a lot of the fighting, and then through collaborative divorce, seeing how it can work so much better and kind of doing similar work that you guys are doing, promoting good parenting after the relationships ends.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right, for sure. So tell us about yourself. Like, who are you? What do you do? How did you come into this space?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I definitely never grew up thinking I was going to be a lawyer. I started my career in the nonprofit world working with youth and families through the YMCA. And so I worked for about 8 years doing human services and children's services and that kind of work. And wanted to get a master's degree. And someone said, why don't you get a law degree? It's really versatile. You can do a bunch of stuff. And I was like, okay, well, as long as I don't become an actual lawyer. So I thought I was going to go and maybe do some more work around nonprofit. And when I was in law school, a lot of people were saying, family law would be a really good fit for you because you have all this experience working with adolescents and children through your nonprofit work. And I was just like, ugh, divorce. Like, I don't want, that sounds really depressing.
Straight
and
to the
that
battlefield.
sounds like,
Right.
not something I want to do. But anyway, ended up having an opportunity to do family law and found it actually to be really incredible work when it's done the right way, taking a family that's sort of at rock bottom or a client who's kind of at rock bottom, facing some of the biggest fears of their life. What's going to happen in my relationship with my child? What's going to happen in my home? What's going to happen to my money?
Yep.
And walking them through to a brand new life that is hopefully better, sometimes much healthier, and trying to minimize the impact that has on their children as much as possible. So that ended up becoming really inspiring, and I've been doing it for over 15 years.
Okay, 15. Wow,
15
that's
years.
wild. So what is collaborative divorce? What is it?
Yeah, so collaborative divorce is a special type of divorce that people can elect to do. And the difference between a collaborative divorce and just your sort of typical divorce is that the couple decides that they will not go to court. Okay. And not only do they just agree to that, but they actually sign a contract that they say, we will not go to court. We are going to go through this process acting in good faith, with transparency, and putting our kids first. So for once you've taken sort of the court off the table,
Right.
people just can relax. Like this huge threat that is so scary and real is taken off the table. And the process involves not just that contract, but then working with multiple professionals that you jointly hire to help you do the really hard work of reaching an agreement. In some ways, it's harder than just running to court and getting a judge to make a decision. So that's just that's the essence of collaborative divorce.
That sounds beautiful.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was an option. Right, because you don't hear that promoted, that you don't have to go through the courts. It's automatically, you hear divorce, you automatically think court, legal proceedings. So just a simple fact, like, it's an option. I'm pretty sure it's a sigh of relief for a lot of people that might potentially be ready to go through that process. What is the number one, not the number one reason, what's the reason you see often for families getting ready to go through divorce proceedings, especially when kids are involved?
What leads them to wanting to get the divorce?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things. I mean, I see obviously a lot of infidelity. That's a big reason. I
didn't know that was that obvious.
Is that not obvious? Okay.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I know it happens. But, you know, I didn't know that would be front and center when it comes to like divorce and so on. And like when you're talking to them and learning the reason why, like they're bringing forth that information.
Yeah, infidelity is a big one, and it is a really tough one because it's a betrayal.
Yeah.
And when you're starting off your divorce process with a betrayal and a lack of trust, that takes a huge amount of effort, really by both sides, to say, can we set that over here, not say it didn't happen, but can we set that over here and still focus on what's best for our kids through this process? And it takes a lot of, effort for people to do that, because it really is a betrayal.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
And the simple fact that families who've been portrayed still elect to do, collaborative divorce, that's amazing, because like you said, it starts off with betrayal, and yet this person still wants to work it out amicably.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's, wow.
Yeah. And so the team, and that's where the team comes in. So the couple has their own collaboratively trained attorneys. So you have to work with a collaborative attorney. You don't sort of like have one person with a collaborative attorney and one with like, a shark who's going to go out and, take advantage of the situation. So we have to be a collaborative attorney. But then there's a divorce coach on the team that is hired by both of the parties. And they are normally a master's in social work. So they are somebody that is offering that emotional support for the couple.
Awesome.
And so they have some separate meetings with them, and then they also are part of the team meetings as well. And then they have a financial neutral. So that is hiring one person to deal with all the finance stuff and who can present it in a neutral way. Because in a traditional divorce, you have, I go get my expert, you go get your expert, and then we fight it out.
Draw the battle line.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the coach, so it's like this whole kind of like support system for this couple to say, we're not just going to say like, oh, you guys agree to work it out. Okay, let us know what you've decided. It's like, no, we're going to work through it together in a series of meetings over normally 4 to 6 meetings.
Wow, that's it?
As a team to come up with our agreements that are best for this family. And everybody's united in what's best for this family, not what's best for my client, what's best for your client, what's best for me. It's what's best for this family, and how can we reach an agreement that everybody feels that good about.
That's powerful.
It is amazing. It's amazing.
So many follow-up questions.
Right.
Oh my gosh. But I wanted to actually let you finish your original thought. You were answering like what usually causes divorce. So you said infidelity.
Yeah, infidelity. I think, there's just sort of like a classic, like I keep on calling these classics, but maybe they're not, just growing apart. A lot of times people want to stay together until the kids are graduated from high school. And then it's sort of like, okay, we kind of hung in there for the kids. Now it's time, to get a divorce. There's also there's also personality issues, there are some, personalities that are really not going to be good for each other and can be pretty toxic, and the relationship just becomes really toxic. If there is a power dynamic like in a relationship, then we have to be really careful about that for collaborative divorce. Specifically, if there's domestic violence, that's not a collaborative case.
Right.
So you turn them away.
Yes.
Okay. Or maybe you turn them to another service.
Yeah. Or they just would go through a traditional,
Right.
probably would have to go to court and those kinds of things.
Okay.
But yeah, so those are the things the reasons that I can think of off the top of my head.
Everyone says finance.
I was about to say the same thing. There's always finance or money or something.
There's definitely people have a different way, of you've kind of got the spender and you've got the thrifter. That's sort of a classic, Again, I keep using these like classic because I guess this is my world.
I know
This is your world.
We're in your world now. Welcome us into it. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So you can have the spender and the thrifter and that kind of thing. I don't really hear people saying that's the reason as much for the divorce, but that is definitely a component to a relationship that's not working.
Right.
Is that there's that, a spender, a thrifter. And the same with parenting. There's typically like a protective parent, and then there's the, kind of fun parent, like, yeah, let's try to climb up this giant mountain or whatever and just see what happens. And the other parent's like, do you have your safety equipment? Those kinds of
You have
things.
your
So
helmet,
there's,
where's your boots?
yeah.
Some fundamental differences.
Right.
And I think in the collaborative process, what's cool is that we can say, you know what, your kids need both of that.
Mm-hmm.
They need the parent who is going to be like, did you pack the Band-Aids and did you blah, 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 blah. And you need the parent who's like, let's just wake up and go somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, the balance.
And can start kind of appreciating, you know what, our kids need both of that. And that's part of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So why should we make one more important or better than the other?
Right. That's beautiful. Yeah, I have some clients where I've had clients in the past where, there is that difference and, it comes down to the problem is when someone thinks one is better than the other, like there's only one way to parent. And a lot of the times I'm like, okay, let's refocus that. Like what is offered to your child by having both of those influences, and having that balance, and what have you. And there's not one way to parent successfully. And so I love that you welcome that as well.
I mean, and most people can just say, if you were, around both your parents growing up, and you'd be like, oh, my dad was so this and my mom was so that. And that's part of what, makes you who you are.
Right.
So, kind of appreciate that. So that's something that I really like about the collaborative process.
Awesome. And so with the finance person, like how are they able to think about things in a collaborative sense? Because usually people there is a separating of finances in a sense. And so like, do they present a couple of different scenarios, like based off of maybe values? Like, how does that work? Does the house, like in terms of like a house, maybe like, if you're trying to split the house or something.
Yeah. So there's definitely scenarios. So we have, in Washington, we're in a collaborative divorce, you still get an understanding of the laws, but you're not necessarily bound by them like the court would be. So, but there is still the general idea that things should be shared and divided, fairly and equitably. For a lot of times that means kind of a 50-50. What often happens in those kinds of dynamics with parents or families who have one parent who's kind of been the money person and then one person, who hasn't been, sometimes it just takes some education for the person who maybe wasn't managing the bills. Right. And that can be really scary. It might be the first time in their life that they are going to be responsible for the mortgage payment, for the utilities, for all those things. And so, and like managing a budget and things like that. So suddenly they're kind of in a situation where they're like, I have to step into that role. My spouse has been handling that for the most part, through our marriage. And now I have to kind of figure out like, how am I going to do this? And that can be really, really intimidating, regardless of, who ends up getting the house, and who ends up, getting a new place or if they sell the house or whatever. It can also be a time where somebody all of a sudden gets assets, they get like, half their spouse's retirement account or a brokerage account. And then, so they may need to get some financial advice about what am I supposed to do with this?
Right.
How do I invest this? How do I make this last? And all of those things. So it's interesting to see how, this one spouse took on this role in the marriage and this person maybe took on a different role. And now they're going to have to learn how to take on a role that they didn't necessarily take on. And it can be scary in, finances, and parenting too.
Yeah. So like help me understand. So are you guys pushing a philosophy or idea on how to split things? Like, are you suggesting 50-50? It's collaborative. Is there like a right way? Does the collaborative divorce mean that there's a certain way that you guys talk about and divvy up money and assets and things?
Yeah, no. So in collaborative divorce, people can make up their own creative way that they believe is fair.
Is that fair? Like that's everyone has different ideas of fair.
It is different. I mean, they are informed about what the laws are in the state of Washington, and there can't, and there shouldn't be an imbalance. Okay. And, if someone's suggesting something in a collaborative process that wouldn't be fair to my counterpart's client, I might say, that's not going to be enough money for her. Right. I'd be worried about how she's going to that's weird for me as the lawyer to say that about the other party. Like I'd be a little worried about how she's going to cover her healthcare costs with that? Why don't we look at a different number? So, so it is fair, but it can be done in a really creative way, which is really, really nice. In a traditional divorce, and I did, litigation for the vast majority of my time as a family law attorney and still have litigation cases. I mean, you kind of come in, you're like, okay, this is how it's going to go. These are the laws. Like, let's go force them to agree to it, or go to court if they won't.
Right. Okay.
And so it's different. You're sort of just telling people what to do, and they don't really have that ownership. Like, they didn't build it.
Yeah.
And collaborative is more like, let's build this, new life together.
I mean, my ex, Adama, we never were married. Jeffrey has never been married. And so we haven't had to go through this process. But a thought that just came in my head is like, maybe, I think I'm going to do a prenup. Like, I think if I get married, I will do a prenup.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty damn sure I'll do a prenup. And because I see a prenup as like, if you're going to get divorced, God forbid, you're going to be agreeing to some terms of your divorce, regardless of whether you did a prenup or not. So if I got married in Washington, I am agreeing to certain terms of a divorce. So might as well have some more control by creating our own prenup is my assumption.
Yes.
And I would put collaborative divorce in the prenup. Could I do that?
I got a devil's advocate question following what you.
That's a really good question. Yeah. But what I was going to say is that one really cool thing that I've been learning as I've been doing more collaborative is that people do collaborative prenups. And I think it is really like brilliant because how a lot of people get married, especially, when they're first kind of starting out or whatever, and they don't talk about money. And then they end up.
It's about love. It's just love. We're
gonna just like Google Gaga. Yeah, like you're just sort of like
we'll never. Yeah,
right. And you don't sit down and say like, what are our priorities? Do we want to buy like a car or save for our kids' college? Like what and all of those things. And if you do a prenup collaboratively, and I was just talking to some of my colleagues who are doing this, it's actually kind of that financial conversation before you get married. Like, how do we want to build a nest egg, or do we want to keep things separate? And I thought that was really cool to think about doing that even before, because it seems like you probably are never going to need the prenup, honestly, if you start that way and you're like doing a collaborative prenup, because I mean, then you're really already talking about all of these things and not running into those, roadblocks when you're married around finances.
Right.
So my devil's advocate question regarding the prenup. You meet a couple, like, we're never going to get divorced. We're going to be married forever. This is real love. We're going to do it. What advice would you give that optimistic couple? Even though you should be optimistic, you about to get married, about the, spiritual union and all that. Yeah. But have you ran across couples like that? It's like, we don't need a divorce because we don't plan on breaking up.
A prenup, yeah.
Yeah, the prenup.
Yeah. I mean, I see it more in the context of, I see it a little bit differently. Like, we're getting a divorce and she's not going to go to court. Like, we're cool. Or he's not going to go to court. He'll never really take this up and, litigate. And that a lot of times isn't the case. But in terms of, saying we're going to be together forever and we don't need the prenup. I mean, I'm not a huge advocate of prenups because I think that they can be really helpful in sort of like setting out, especially if you've been, married before, you're a professional or whatever, can set out like what our agreements are. Mm-hmm. But I think that the laws do a lot to protect, couples anyway when they're going through divorce. So I think there are certain circumstances where you would need a prenup. And I think it would be naive to say, we're going to be together forever because, I don't know the percentages, like 50% of, marriages, not great. I mean, it's more, it's likely that you're not going to need it. But I don't know that I wouldn't necessarily say every single person needs to have a prenup. It depends on the circumstances.
A question just popped in my mind. Thank you for answering that.
Yeah.
Would you advise couples considering marriage to sit down with a divorce attorney before they get married?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, it feels like, is it going to jinx them or something?
No, it's just like,
you know what I mean?
Like, what are you manifesting?
No, it's like, I'm thinking because it's like, if like say you're starting a business, right? Like you want to investigate, research, learn all the ins and outs, do your SWOT analysis, do all these analysis, start to finish, the risk, the obstacles. But I don't know. I've never heard nobody say that we spoke to a divorce attorney before we decided to get married, just to see what's expected in case it doesn't work out.
I've never had that call of someone saying, I'm thinking about getting married and I kind of want to know, what the other end, of it might be. But, I think that like we said, when you're in that state, you're more in the like, I just see love and this will never end,
Ever. Yeah.
and that kind of thing. But a lot of people have been impacted by divorce, as children and, and their friends, and they, start to look around and say, can kind of get an idea of sort of what are some of the obstacles with it. But yeah.
So how is collaborative divorce proceedings different from just divorce? Just going through the courts and all that, like besides there's a team that's going to be involved to make it a smooth process.
Yeah.
But besides the team aspect of it, like what's the other big differences?
Well, it's being able to do things that I guess I would say would never be kind of allowed in court. And I can give you an example. So I had a client who the parties had agreed that he was going to stay at home part-time and only work part-time. They decided that was really important for the kids during their marriage. She went off and worked full-time, but it was really important that they had one parent home like half the time. That was just how they wanted to have their family. They had 3 kids. And in a traditional divorce, we would say, to him, like, there's no way the court's going to let you work part-time. Like, you got to go work part-time. You got to go get a job so you can pay for all your kids' expenses. You can't expect her to support you when you're only working part-time. And that was what he wanted. He wanted to see if she would continue to support him so that they could maintain that agreement they had where he only had to work part-time because they had 3 little kids, all the driving, this and that, whatever. So it's true. Like if they had gone to court, the court would have just been like, you got to work. You can't, there's no there's no staying home,
right? Like that's
or
cute.
working part-time.
I can see the judge frowning right now.
That's adorable.
But in this,
sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Finish your thought.
But in this collaborative process, that was like a value that that he stated. When we had these kids, we decided it was really important for our family that one of us only works part-time so that we can get them to all their soccer practices. We can do all the things, and we decided that was a really important way to raise our children. And I want to find a way to continue to do that. And it was really important and scary that could be taken away. And we were able to work out an agreement financially to make that work and for them to be able to maintain that value because everybody wanted to, support the family in the way that they would. And that would not have been an outcome that would have happened in court. And it was really incredible. I mean, the way they thanked each other for that, the way he was able to say, I just thank you for being able to maintain that value for our family. After the final session, they actually spent time just acknowledging their marriage, being grateful for their children, for the years that they had been together, and for the gifts that they had given each other during that time, and that it was time to move on. It was the first time as a lawyer that I was like holding back tears. I was like, I'm gonna cry right now, and I'm the lawyer. Like I'm supposed to not be like
no feelings.
Save that for home.
I know exactly. But I was just like, oh my gosh, and they, and they gave the rings back, and it was just, it was.
Sounds ceremonial.
It was almost ceremonial.
Wow. Do you ever encourage that energy? Maybe not like a whole saging and all that, but do you ever encourage some recognition? Does that play a role in how you guys go about your process?
Definitely. I mean, I normally am not in that particular role. In that role, the coach was doing that.
Got it.
But the coach was kind of walking them through. By the time we finally got to the end of the agreement, it was really hard work to get there. Sort of taking that moment of gratitude and transition to a new family. Okay. It's still a family. Yep. It's just a new family.
A new structure.
A new structure.
Now let me ask you this. That is beautiful. Do you think gender played a role there? Because I think I've heard of families where if a mom didn't work, there'd be no question. There'd be alimony paid to that mom the mom wouldn't be expected to necessarily get a job if their lifestyle had been that way. They hadn't gone to school for a long time.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Okay.
It's not specific to gender. The response, once you're going through a divorce, if you've been a stay-at-home mom, you're now going to be expected to work.
Oh, wow.
You're going to be expected to, in most cases, because you have to kind of like pull your weight. And even if that means you're not going to be earning as much because you might be at a lower, salary because you've been out of the workforce. I mean, not right away, but, give you a little bit of time and ultimately get back to work. And that for a lot of people that's really hard for stay-at-home parents who don't want the divorce. And I don't even want to get divorced. And now I am going to be seeing my child so much less. And I have to work because you're not going to be ordered to give me, you'll still be ordered to give me some support and alimony, that kind of thing, but not to the level to maintain, living in Seattle.
That part.
Which is a lot.
And to piggyback off of Sid's question regarding gender, because one of the biggest things is the spousal support, alimony, and all that stuff. So how does Washington state laws, how do they work regarding divorce? Is it like, breadwinner has to provide spousal support? Is it gender specific? Because that's one of the major myths out there is like, the man makes the most money, so the man has to do this, the man has to do that, and the woman has to do this. So, and you just said it doesn't matter. Like, if you separate, you have to get up now. You can't rely on the spousal support. So, is there a big difference with Washington states?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always biases, gender biases that are out there. But generally speaking, the law is just around, the money. So, if you have somebody who, regardless if it's the man or the woman, and honestly, there's a lot of families right now where the woman is earning more than the man. I've seen that change, over the past 10 years probably. But anyway, regardless of who it is, if the other person doesn't have enough money to meet their needs, then they can seek spousal support from their ex-spouse. So, and that person has to have the ability. So it's called ability versus need. So let's just go with the sort of stereotypical, if the man is making the majority of the money and he has the ability, so meaning he takes a look at his budget and he says, okay, I make this much a month and these are my expenses. And afterwards I've got about $2,000 left over or whatever, then that is his ability to pay. And we look at her budget and say, she's short like $2,000, even if she goes out and works full time, because she can only work, a minimum wage right now, she's going to need that too. So that's kind of how that works to kind of put them in, a position where they can both meet their needs. And then there's child support as well.
On top of that.
Yes.
Yeah, pay up. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, she said women were taking over, so
I
pay
know,
up,
it's true.
sisters.
So I actually had some mentors who were like high up at Microsoft, some Black women mentors that are like high up at Microsoft, high up at Amazon, and they are the breadwinners between them and their husbands. And, one of them was like, I would proudly, happily give alimony to my husband. We've put this much time in together and this and that. And now, of course, I'm like, okay, but are there any circumstances that would change that? Like infidelity or something.
Right. It makes it harder for sure. It makes it harder. I will say that one thing that's kind of interesting is I found that because, like you said, that sort of like the stereotype or whatever is that the man's making the majority of the money. I think men have been they've been kind of told more by society, you're going to have to pay. Women haven't heard that message. So I definitely run into professional women who are like, excuse me? Like,
that's where the prenups come in. Can the prenups support that?
Good old equality.
Yeah, you can deal with spousal support and prenups.
Okay.
But women who are just like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Like, he has been sitting on the couch, not doing it, whatever. And I've heard it all. And I'm just like, yep, you still got to pay him, kind of thing. But I think in some ways, culturally, it's a little bit harder for women because men have been hearing that message forever, right? Like, you're going to have to pay spousal support, child support, whatever, kind of thing. And they're sort of just like, just tell me how much I need to pay.
Right.
And then when it's the woman who has to pay, sometimes they're just like, hold on, wait a second. Hold on.
Right.
Like, I need to go just
equal
process
rights.
this. Right. Exactly.
Equal rights.
Equal rights. Getting bad. Equal rights.
Exactly.
With caveats.
Yeah.
Great. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, so regarding the spousal support, how a percentage from scale to 1 to 10, how often does the person who initiate the divorce has to pay the spousal support from what you've experienced?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I don't really know. I mean, I don't think it makes I haven't seen it make a huge difference. Who, like, you know, whether or not the person who is the person who's going to have to pay initiates the divorce. I'm not sure. You know, I think it seems like it's kind of equal because, like I said, you know, I don't hear people say we're getting a divorce because we're fighting over money. That's normally like like that's normally kind of a symptom of the personality issues that are going on, or, you know, whatever is happening. And there's also fighting about money. So I don't really see that being a big deal. But yeah, I mean, support's really important. Child support is really important. You know, I mean, I just don't take clients who call our firm and say, I'm calling because I'm trying to get out of paying child support. I'm like, call someone else. Like, that's not what I do. Kids need to be supported. Right. And you have a responsibility. Yeah.
So how does somebody find the collaborative divorce attorney? Like, how, because that's something, you just hear divorce attorney. Yeah. So how does your field get recommended? Like, how do people get to find you specifically?
Yeah. So at our firm, so it's Dubois Levias law group. And so you can find us just on our website, but there's also the King County Collaborative Divorce website. Okay, so those are all the King County attorneys who are collaborative divorce attorneys. So you can go there and you can see all their pictures and a list of them. And so you can pick, and you can even sit down with your spouse and pick, you know, like, we want to pick from this group because we both want collaborative divorce attorneys. And there's also a Washington State collaborative professionals. And so there's, you know, ways to get hooked up with collaborative divorce attorneys there. But a lot of times it's because they just call our office just thinking they want, you know, a regular divorce. And as I'm talking to them and kind of hearing more, and they're like, we really want to make sure our kids come first. It's really important for us to have a good relationship. We don't want to fight. We don't want to go to court. And then I'll say, have you, you know, heard about collaborative divorce? That might be a good fit for you guys.
What is that?
Yeah. And then that's how it happens. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think the impact is, and the difference of the impact when it comes to collaborative divorce on children versus like litigation and going through the courthouse on children?
I mean, I think it's huge. I think it's really huge, and it's really important to me, just my own personal value, to help people have a divorce in a way, whether it's collaborative or traditional, that minimizes the negative impact on their kids, because that relationship, your romantic relationship with your partner obviously is ending, but your relationship with your kids is going to go on forever, and you're going to have to co-parent with this person forever. Hopefully your kids are outliving you. So that means, and it doesn't just end at 18. I mean, then there's like the college graduation or whatever it is, and the marriage, and you know, the first baby, and the grandparents, and all of that stuff. And you want to be at all of those things. And so I think, you know, people who are going into it in a collaborative way, especially working with the coach and that kind of thing, can sort of recognize how important it is to shield the kids from conflict. And, you know, like, for example, I see a lot less speaking, actually really none at all, speaking negatively about the other parent, which is
a lot less
of that in collaborative, like not putting the other parent down in front of the kids.
That's that's dope. That's good. That's very
because
good.
That is so, and you guys know this because you guys are like the experts preaching. I mean, that is so hurtful to a child.
Yep.
And I try to explain that to my clients who maybe not, you know, regardless of how they're doing their divorce, that like, when you are putting down your kid's other parent, you are actually putting down your child. Yeah. Because that's half of them.
Yep.
You know, and when you are hating the other parent and saying, I hate him, or I can't, you know, that kind of, you are hating a part of your child. Yeah. Like, that's how it can feel. And so just to take that away is huge.
Right.
Like, if you can just take that away, and it's hard for parents because they're going through like an emotional thing, and they're just like, I just needed to talk to my 13-year-old daughter about this. And it's like, no, you need to find your 30-year-old friend.
Right. Right. Yeah.
She's not your friend
That's
and
not
buddy
your friend.
in this,
You're robbing your child of an opportunity to see someone as their hero, someone they can look up to and love. Like, you're robbing them of having opportunity to really love and look up to their father and like have that special dynamic, or mother, or what have you. And I think that's just horrible to rob them of, like, and I've seen married couples where the wife will just tear the husband down in front of the child, and the child now speaks really rudely to that father. And it's like, you've robbed her of her opportunity to see him as her provider and someone who loves her and who can care for her, because now she thinks little of him like you do. Maybe y'all should get a divorce, whatever. I'm not an expert on that, but
or just like putting the child in the middle, like asking them what they want, and that can just, they don't want to be the decider on that. I mean,
screw them over for generations.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's actually what I really started liking about doing divorce work in general. When I first started, I realized that since, like I said, my background is in really around youth advocacy. And then when I became a divorce lawyer and I was thinking, how does this fit into who I am? I realized that how it fits into who I am is because I'm still advocating for children, but just through their parents.
Which is key.
And doing that coaching and saying, no, don't talk to them about this. Like, hey, hold on, stop. And I could tell them that not just because I believed in it as a value, but I could tell them that as a lawyer and say, the judge is going to be so mad at you. If the judge finds out that you're talking to your kids about this, or that you did this XYZ, and that kind of gave that power, like that authority, so they're like, I better listen. I don't want to screw up my case.
Right.
But it was also saying it because it's a really important value.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions, actually. Like, what was that moment that made you decide to pursue family law?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you answered it, so thank you for answering that. How long does a divorce proceedings usually last? Like, how often, like, how long do you work with a family from start to finish?
About a year is how long the court gives you. Ooh. So you can do it in as short as 90 days.
Okay.
There's a 90-day waiting period, but they give you up to about a year to get it all figured out, signed, sealed, delivered to the court. And if you can't get it figured out within that year, then you have to come to a trial and have the judge decide.
So is that specifically for collaborative divorce?
That's specifically for just a traditional divorce.
Divorce. Okay.
Yeah. And then how long the collaborative process normally takes is normally shorter. It's normally, like I said, somewhere between 4 and 6 sessions. And the sessions happen every 4 to 6 weeks. So, it kind of happens over that period of time. Yeah, and you're not on like a case schedule like you are when you're just, when you filed for divorce and you're going through the court process.
Right. It's one of the, is finances usually the biggest hang up, or is it more like
It's child
care? Yeah.
Child custody is one of the main reasons why people go to court. I mean, it's not really a smart financial decision to go to court over finances, because it's so expensive to have a lawyer take you all the way to trial, that for most people, the difference between what they're fighting over financially is wiped out by the attorney fees that they would need to pay in order to even go.
Well said. I've seen that happen.
Trial, right?
Well, not from peripherally.
Peripherally.
But I had a really good friend where we're literally on the opposite ends of co-parenting, where theirs is definitely parallel parenting. It's really to the years later, they're still like have to talk through lawyers and still have to use apps that, so that they don't have to interact. And they're still, what do you call it when someone wants to challenge someone legally?
Like bring them to
contempt? What do you call it? Proposition? Yeah, contempt or something.
Motion.
Like something like a motion, or like they want to complain and say that someone's doing something wrong. Anyways, it starts with a P, I think.
Filing a petition or something.
Anyways, but I said it to say, it's just been brutal to watch that. Like, I just feel like you're just waiting. When you're waiting to see a message from them because you know what's going to happen. Yeah. I can't imagine the amount of stress. That's why a lot of the reasons why I promote, collaborative co-parenting, if you will, is not only, of course, for the children, but also, like, I don't know if people get, like, how much peace of mind you can have when you take that angst out, you take all the negative things that play a role in how people interact with each other after separating. Like you can do it for you, like having that peace of mind. And when my ex texts me, I have no fear that it's going to be anything weird attacking me or anything like that. I have great peace of mind. I know it's probably going to be a nice update or a weird meme that's funny. And like, I don't know, but like at the end of the day, say
with this meme right now, it's like,
right. But like at the end of the day, like we can assume positive intent because we've really built up that trust. But I have my other friend, if they see a message, their heart rate goes up because it's going to be something attacking them. It's going to be another thing, where they have to reference the co-parenting plan.
Well, it's also just so important from your child's perspective, looking at how you're handling conflict.
Yes.
And so I really started shifting more into collaborative actually during COVID and kind of that, the 2020 sort of like world that we started to live in, not only with COVID and how much, difficulty there was in the world, but then also just how much conflict there's been in the world. And I just was like, I just want to, going to court as a litigator or going to work as a litigator is like going into the ring every day and fighting. And I was like, I want to personally do more collaborative work, and I want my clients to have more of that in their life because our kids are watching us.
They can feel
They're
us.
watching how we're handling conflict and difficulties right now in the world. And the more that we can, in my little divorce world, show kids that you don't have to call each other names and hurt each other and, all of this stuff, negative stuff, just because you disagree. Just because you've decided to part ways,
right?
And so I think what it sounds like what you and your ex have is incredible, but thinking about what your kid is seeing, is even more incredible to think about.
This definitely is incredible to watch it from this point of view. What they got going on is amazing. It's astounding what they are able to pull off. So it is. Another myth regarding like divorce and lawyers is the fact that both, if they like this family gets divorced, one attorney, the other attorney, they're actually fans behind the scene, and their job is to milk this family for all their money and things like that, because they get paid by the hour and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So how do you combat myths? Because I'm pretty sure there has been families that came with you with apprehension, like, oh, this is a lawyer, so they're trying to take advantage of me. How do you put the family like, no, I'm here for you, not working against you? So...
Well, first of all, the main thing is we have so many cases that we don't need to milk your case. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to milk your case. Like, I would love it if we could just wrap this up quickly and be, you know what I mean? Because we've got, people that, are trying to get into our schedule, kind of thing. So there's plenty of divorces out there. So there's not that, sense. And I'm sure there are lawyers who, there probably are lawyers out there that are just trying to milk it and that kind of thing. I've never experienced that with another attorney on the other side where we're just trying to get in on it for as long as possible to get money. We're normally trying to get the case, resolved as fairly and quickly, as we can. We're also really, I think, what people don't realize about lawyers is that a lot of lawyers think that they can call, and say, I want you to do this, this, and this, and this. And if I disagree with that strategy, I'm not going to take that case. Like, for example, if someone calls me and says I don't want to pay my child support. Like, this is ridiculous. You're asking for way too much. I shouldn't pay anything. I never even get to see my kid or whatever it is. We can be selective. And I think that then they realize oh, this isn't somebody who's just they'll just take any case. They'll just take any, it's green no matter what kind of idea. But I think it's just a trust. Honestly, my relationship with my clients, when you work with a lawyer going through a divorce, you get pretty connected to that person. We maintain a professional role because that's really important. You can't give people really good advice if you're really in it emotionally with them, but you also, it has to be a trust relationship. They have to trust you, you have to trust them. We're working together on this. So it's really important to establish that. It just takes time.
All right. So have you ever dealt with a family where somebody the father questioned the paternity of one of the children? Like, is
Yeah.
I don't think. Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that does happen.
Yeah.
How was that?
Fraternity court.
Paternity court. Okay, there you go. Yeah.
So you send them over there, or do you keep working with them and let them do some like testing, or does it not
Yeah.
matter because you've been living with? There's some state law that says who cares whose DNA is whose.
Right.
You've been designated the father. You're on the birth certificate. You're gonna pay up, or you're gonna.
Yeah, God, the laws are really kind of complicated around this, but yeah, that definitely has happened where, paternity is in question, and so there's some kind of like old laws on the book where if you're married and your wife is pregnant, there's a presumption that that child is yours because you're married. And so what happens sometimes is it's not.
That part, especially in good old Seattle. A lot
Good
of
old
different
Seattle, yeah.
polyamorous fun. Anyways,
Yeah. And so it's kind of interesting because they have that law on the books still, because it kind of is like that old fashioned, like, it sounds like, I don't even know if, anyway, I'll just say it. Remember like the whole like being a bastard or whatever was like this thing, right?
Yeah.
So they had this law, like if you're married and there's a child of that marriage, that child has this father. But, so that there's only a finite period of time where the real father can come in and say, no, I want a paternity test. I think I'm the father. Once it's been 4 years, then the husband is the father because they want that child to have that relationship. Anyway, there's complicated rules around paternity, but yes, and there's testing and there's DNA and those are
that is so
interesting.
So what you're saying is you got from 0 to 4 to establish paternity. Otherwise, the husband is going to be recognized as a paternal father, whether it's biological or not.
In a marriage.
In a marriage, okay.
If it's outside of a marriage, then no, there's no nothing like that. But if that husband has been raising that child for that many years, then they, from the child's perspective, that's my dad. And so there's like this, these rules that still sort of say, okay, we're going to keep that relationship that child views you as the dad, and you're going to be the dad unless somebody steps in before a certain period of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
There's so many nuances.
There's a lot of nuances on that one.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So would you say people can save money by going to you, or is the cost kind of, how should someone think about costs when it comes to either going your route, the collaborative divorce route, or going to litigation and going through the courthouse?
Oh my gosh. Well, litigation is so much more expensive. I mean, anytime you go to court, it's just going to be expensive because of all the paperwork that's required, and all the preparation and, evidence and all of that stuff. So you're definitely spending tens of thousands of dollars if you're going to court. And if you have a private attorney, which there are no public defenders allowed in family law. So you either have yourself or a private attorney. But, I would say that the collaborative divorce is definitely more reasonable. I mean, you do have professionals that you're paying for. I mean, it's still an investment in it, but, it's an investment that's going to cost you a lot less.
Right.
But it's definitely still an investment. I mean, and some people don't need the full collaborative thing. They can just be like, we kind of already figured it out and we sketched it out over the dining room table and we just need a lawyer to draft it up for us so it actually holds water. And that's fine too. And that's really the cheapest thing to do, know, like work it as the more things. I always tell my clients, the more things you can agree to on your own, the less expensive it's going to be,
right?
Because then you can just kind of move through and get things written out.
That's basically based on if both parties agree to, we should divorce versus one trying to fight it over the other. So,
yeah.
And then agreeing what those terms are. Because one thing to agree that you're divorcing, it's another thing when you talk about parenting schedules and money. And like what does it look like to now be divorced?
Yeah. But I would say that the collaborative divorce, I would say, is the path of least destruction for sure. I mean, it's definitely, you keep the relationship intact, to the extent, that you can. I mean, it's still hard. It's not easy, even just going through it collaboratively. Now you're like, I got to talk to this person and all this stuff. I'm kind of like just like done with them.
Right.
But I got to do this. And we got to put our kids first.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you, how do you protect yourself emotionally and mentally? Because like you said, you go to work literally going to the battlefield. Like
Well, not the battlefield.
No, not the battlefield. Like, okay, not the battlefield. But how do you protect yourself mentally and emotionally from not taking on what you deal with on a consistent basis, dealing with families breaking up and secrets being revealed and all that stuff? Like, how do you protect yourself? How do you take care of yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I do still, I mean, my collaborative practice, like I said, I've been building that since about 2020, and so I still have litigation cases too.
Yeah, okay, got it.
So, but I would say I actually working before I became a lawyer. Working at the Y and working with families and kids and stuff actually helped me create that boundary, because I, as a lawyer, I know that I need to, and I am, compassionate and caring about the situation, but like I have to keep my own emotion out of it because I can't give you good advice. Yeah. So like, for example, if I'm too emotionally wrapped into it, for example, I don't represent my really good friends when they're going through a divorce, right?
No.
Right.
Because you're just like, you need to go in there, and I start turning into like, the best friend, and I'm like, go fight and do this, and how could he have done that, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm no longer that professional. It's like, okay, that's a different perspective. Let's see if we can work with that perspective, kind of thing. So
and you had to establish that early too.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's just, just maintaining that boundary and knowing that that's how you best serve somebody, is maintaining that professional sort of capacity to, I can take this on, but I don't have to take it on the emotional pieces. And so, but it can be tough. I mean, every once in a while, there's definitely cases that will just sneak their way into my heart, and I'm like, I might get heartbroken here.
Oh, yeah. Are there like, on that question, on that topic, are there things that you do? I know you're saying like, I just separate myself, but are there things you think, or like routines? Do you like meditate? Like, are there any things you do to like help you keep that separation? Well,
yeah. I mean, I definitely, I have my own professional coach.
Okay.
That I work with. And so he helps me kind of with those sort of issues, and then, exercise, and then, and my family support. So, I'm one of 5 kids, and so I came from a big family, and then I'm married with 2 kids at home. So, kind of going back to that. And I have to say, it's funny because people are like, oh, you're married and you're a divorce attorney.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah.
I'm learning what not to do. Learning what not to do every day.
And I wish they would try to divorce me.
And my husband is so lucky because like the things that I could maybe throw a little fit about, I am like, oh, what I saw today, like, you're an angel.
Perspective.
Exactly. You know what I mean?
Right.
So actually it's really, I actually feel like it's sort of, it helps me kind of like pick my battles, and all of those things, stay in my lane. Like, I'm not going to, he's the laundry master, and I don't go there, so because like we'll get into a fight because I will have done something wrong, or he will, whatever. Yeah. So it's like, just stay in your lane, all those kinds of things.
That's good.
That's some good marriage advice there.
Oh yeah.
It. That's not for this podcast, but I was going
so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now we've talked about like money and like the time frame and such, but I know you've mentioned a lot of the folks that have come to you for collaborative divorce. They seem like angels almost. I don't know, but are there folks within that process where you realize, either this isn't actually a good fit, or there's some coaching that needs to be involved, like maybe some alienation, or where a parent is trying to say like, oh, they only need 10% of time? Or do you guys not have opinions on that? It's more so if you both agree on 10% of time, then it's fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that first of all, like screening people to make sure that it's the right fit for them is really, really, really important. Okay. So that's worked so far with me. But I definitely know there's collaborative divorces that don't end up finishing up collaborative, and they do have to step away from that process. But I think, screening and making sure it's the right fit is really important. And like I said, looking out for those power dynamics, those personality issues that might make it so that somebody's not able to collaborate. I mean, there's just certain personalities, like I don't have the ability to see a different point of view than my own. I mean, we call them narcissists.
Yes, nice popular term.
It's a popular term, but like
that word.
That word.
The other N word. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
But yeah, so I think those, like looking for that and screening for that. But I think that, so the goal is to try to like make sure that the people that are there are going to be successful in this process.
Okay.
And that's kind of the best way to do it. But it doesn't mean that they're perfect people. I mean, it's still hard.
Yeah.
It's just people that are like really willing to like roll up their sleeves and do that hard work and like kind of bite their tongue a little bit and sort of say like, okay, I'm gonna put my best foot forward in this process, because that's going to, be healthier for me. It's going to be healthier for my kids and ultimately for my family. In terms of like the 10% parenting, I mean, I believe that most kids need both parents in their lives. There are circumstances where that can't be possible. And those should be just extreme.
The extremes. Yeah.
Those should be extreme. My one of the things I do share with clients is that my father was the first father in his state to get full custody of his children, which were my 3 half brothers. So before my sister and I were born, before he remarried my half brothers, he ended up getting sole custody of them. And that had a, really huge impact, and not necessarily all positive on my brothers. And I think what kind of made me want to advocate for kids, but that was an extreme situation. And I think there are those extreme situations, and those that's when you do need like a court intervention and those kinds of things. But generally speaking, I think kids really thrive from having a relationship with both parents, to the extent that they're, able to, and the parents are, wanting to do that, and hopefully they are.
So thank you for sharing that about your dad, because you typically hear fathers getting sole custody of kids. I mean, you're hearing it more and more now lately, but 15, 20 years ago, you didn't hear it as such. How much did that impact you to making the decision to get into family law? The fact that you lived an experience that was related to it.
I didn't consciously realize that it impacted me in my career choice until later.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't like I consciously thought like, oh, I want to do this work because I saw how it impacted my family. It kind of came up later, but I started to realize that I was representing a lot of dads, and I was really fighting for dads to have a bigger role in their kids' lives. And I was like really feeling really, like that was really important work, I felt like, because I felt like the courts are changing, but there had been some traditional kind of stereotypical dads should have less time and that sort of thing. And so I started kind of noticing that I was doing that and trying to minimize the negative impact on the kids, and starting to realize, no, I think that's coming from my own family experience, to see how my dad just really stepped up and what he did and how he raised us as kids. And then, and also realizing that, that there's also, even though that was an extreme situation, there can be some really negative impact of not having another parent, there. So yeah.
Do you, because one of the other myths is the fact that it's harder for fathers to do it. Is that true from what you've seen, or is it's equal no matter what, as far as like establishment, like that kind of stuff?
I would say it's harder because there's still the bias. It's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be harder. It should be, seen equally. But they have gotten rid of some laws that make it easier for fathers. Like there used to be this tender years law, which basically said when children were a certain age, young children, there was a presumption that they should be with their mother. And so they've kind of gotten rid of that law. And so parents should be under the law, there's nothing that's written that says that there should be one parent weight over the other.
Right.
But I do think that there can still be biases against dads. And I think it is really important for dads to be able to demonstrate how involved they are and all the things they do with their kids, and just like, and celebrate the way dads parent, which might be different than the way mom's parent.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. That's really great.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something I've been learning, and I see more on social media where people are honoring that, like maybe a dad came up with a creative way to take a nap while their kids are like drawing or something like that. And I think it's funny because it's like, oh my God, like, should they really be doing that? Is it okay for them to take a nap while they're supposed to be watching their younger kids? But also it's like honoring, like, hey, they had a creative way to keep them safe and they still need their nap. And like, maybe we should actually champion that and honor that there's not one way to parent.
Yeah. Or maybe they're going to forget to have their kid brush their teeth that night or whatever. And it's like, it's
gonna be
okay.
okay.
It's going to be okay. You know, they're probably not going to get 10 cavities overnight or whatever. But that's
Pizza
part
night
of.
does that. Yeah.
What'd you say?
Pizza night does that sometimes.
Oh my
Turn up on a
gosh.
pizza.
But that's sometimes that parenting, you know, dynamic that when you're used to the other parent always being there because you're in the same house and you're like, okay, well, she's going to make sure they get the toothbrush or he's going to make sure, you know, whatever, they do this. And then all of a sudden that parent isn't there. A lot of times what can happen is, you know, one parent who's like, what did they brush their teeth? And he doesn't know how to do this. And he doesn't know their doctor. And he doesn't know how to do this. And he doesn't know where the PTA meeting is. And he doesn't know where the teacher's classroom is. And he doesn't, you know, and it's like, he'll learn.
Right.
He'll learn.
Right.
It's okay. You know, and if I'm representing the dad, I'm like, all right, you need to get in there, okay? We're going to school. I'm like, you need to fill out the form. And like,
Figure
you're
it
signing
out,
up.
dude.
Like,
Get a little calendar going and figure it
Exactly.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. But that doesn't mean he's unfit.
No,
Okay.
not at all. I mean, and that can just be, you know, like such a cool relationship to have with your child when you're like, hey, little dude, I don't know exactly where your class, can you show me where you're, you know, this and show me, you know what I mean?
Right.
Kind of thing. And it's like, you know, helping each other out a little bit. So no, that unfit is next level, you know, unfit is when, you know, there's, you know, someone's not able to take care of their child because they're hurting them or depriving them of, you know, basic needs and things like that.
Right.
But yeah, he can learn how to sign up for the PTA and, you know, and all that stuff. So make the lunches in the morning or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he should, you know, and she should, you know, learn how to whatever, just going with stereotypes, throw the baseball, you know, or whatever, right? And like get out there and like, you know, throw a few spirals.
Right. Or take it easy. Let the kid let them fall, figure it out and all that.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Is there any other questions you have,
No,
Jeffrey?
I'm good. I'm actually happy and pleasantly surprised off the information you gave us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're
Collaborative divorce.
excited.
It's out there, people.
It's out there.
Yeah,
It's possible. There's a whole network of folks. I mean, I don't plan on getting divorced. I'm not even married, but I would come to you.
Yeah.
We've had some really great conversations, and actually we're blessed to have you on a panel that's coming up July 19th at the station. So we're really excited to create a space for people to learn about amicable divorce, conscious uncoupling, and then also, you know, how to co-parent and such after the divorce. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been amazing.
How can people find you if they need some help?
Yeah. So our website is duboislaw.net. So DUBOIS law.net. And I'm Lucia Levias, and you can find me if you Google me that way. And so, yeah, we're out there. Our office is in Fremont. And there's 8 attorneys that work at our office. And so give us a call.
All right.
Help you out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. All right.
Thank
Have
you
a good
guys.
one.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.